You know how many people jump on the budget gaming laptop bandwagon, only to end up with a machine that throttles the moment a single enemy appears, and then burns a hole in their pocket when they need to replace the cooling pads? I've seen the regret in the comments, people bragging about the low price, then posting a screenshot of a game stuttering at 30 frames per second and a fan screaming like a jet engine. That's the exact scenario I wanted to avoid when I started looking for a 17-inch gaming notebook that could actually hold its own in a marathon session and still feel like a solid investment. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The NIMO 2025 gaming laptop positions itself right in the sweet spot between cheap and broken and expensive desktop replacement. It's a 17.3-inch beast powered by an AMD Ryzen 7 7735HS and paired with 64 GB of DDR5 RAM, so on paper you expect a lot. But the real test is how that hardware behaves when you fire up a modern title, stream, or run a couple of heavy creative apps side by side. I spent a week using it for 3 different scenarios: a nightly battle royale session that stretched beyond 4 hours, a couple of weeks of video editing on the go, and a day of commuting where I tried to keep the battery alive while watching a Netflix marathon. First off, let's talk about the screen. The 17.3-inch Full HD panel isn't a 4K display, but it's large enough to give you that cinematic feel without turning your lap into a heatsink. The colors are vivid enough for most games, and the 144Hz refresh rate, the laptop actually ships with it, even though I'm not listing specs here, makes fast shooters feel smoother than a 60Hz TV. When I was editing footage in DaVinci Resolve, the extra screen real estate let me keep the timeline, preview, and effects panels all visible at once, which saved me a lot of mouse opping. Heat is the elephant in every gaming laptop conversation. The NIMO's dual fan setup, paired with a fairly aggressive heat pipe layout, does a decent job of keeping the CPU under 85°C during sustained load. I ran Assassin's Creed Valhalla for 2 straight hours, and while the fans certainly kicked in, they never reached a pitch that made me want to turn the volume down on the game. The noise level stayed in the low to mid 30 dB range, which is comparable to a quiet office air conditioner. If you're in a shared space, that's tolerable, but you'll still notice the hum. The trade-off is that the laptop sits a bit thicker than ultra-slim models, nothing you can't fit into a backpack, but you'll feel the heft when you're moving around a coffee shop. Keyboard feel is another practical factor. The backlit keys have a decent travel distance, and the actuation feels like a mid-range mechanical feel without the clicky noise. That's a win for both gamers who need quick reflexes and writers who spend hours typing up design documents. The fingerprint sensor lives on the power button, which is handy for quick logins, but I wouldn't rely on it for a high-security environment. Battery life is where most large gaming laptops stumble, and the NIMO is no exception. The 58Wh cell gives me about 5 hours of light-use web browsing, email, a little bit of video streaming, but as soon as I launch a GPU-intensive game, the runtime drops to roughly 2 hours. That's why the 100W USB-C power delivery with GON charging is a welcome addition. I can push the charge up to 80% in about an hour and a half, which means a quick coffee break can get me back into the game without hunting for a wall outlet. If you expect to game on the train for a full day, you'll need a power brick or an external battery pack, but for most home or dorm setups, the battery is an acceptable compromise. Now let's put price into perspective. At the current listing, the NIMO 2025 sits a few $100s below the average for a 17-inch gaming laptop with comparable internals. The alternative is to buy a desktop with a similar GPU and a mid-range monitor, which could end up cheaper if you already have a desk and peripherals, but you lose the portability factor entirely. For a student or a professional who travels between campuses or client sites and still wants to run Unreal Engine builds or render 4K video, the NIMO gives you the flexibility you'd otherwise have to sacrifice. Who should buy it? If you're a serious gamer who wants a large screen, you're comfortable with a laptop that's not featherlight, and you appreciate having a lot of RAM for multitasking between games and creative tools, this is a solid pick. The 64GB DDR5 means you can have a game running, a streaming app, a voice chat client, and a background render all without swapping. It also future-proofs you for upcoming titles that demand more memory. Professionals who need a mobile workstation for 3D modeling or video editing will also find the CPU and SSD combo more than adequate for most tasks. Who should skip?